I want to talk about asset protection for a second. And I'm going to ask you kind of a loaded question, maybe at first, and then we'll kind of dissect it a little bit. But true or false, we should put every property we own in an LLC?
False. You don't put your primary residence in an LLC.
But everything else you would put in an LLC? Let's say single family. Let's start single family only. Why would we?
I can make an argument that you can far more convincingly, or far more that you should far more strongly than I can make the counter argument. Because you see, in my brain, I split and I can argue both sides.
Me too.
Okay. And I don't know if that's a sign that I'm, whatever up there, but anyhow, or just my years of legal training.
Let me ask this, Jeff, and I'm gonna give you plenty of time to talk. True or false? There exists out there somewhere a bulletproof system that is going to protect you and your assets forevermore.
No, false. Because as long as you, the human being, are involved with owning it and operating it, it's not bulletproof because you can make a mistake.
So if I don't operate it, if I turn operations over to someone else, but I still am kind of the owner in some way, some fashion, could that be true?
It could be true. It could be true. But you see, you're asking me absolute questions, and there's just so many variables that I can't give you an absolute answer.
Yeah.
There are several states, I'm just going to tangent this for a second. There are several states that recognize what we call DAP, Domestic Asset Protection Trusts. Properly set up, properly administered, those are the closest thing to being bulletproof. But those are great for assets like if you want to go drop $1 million in various stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and then drop them into a trust, and that type of trust is perfect. You're good. That's a let the clock run out, 2-3 year waiting period. You're good. But for the typical real estate investor who has anywhere between 1 and 100 houses, that DAP does not work. The domestic asset protection does not work because you're involved with it on a daily basis, and it's an irrevocable trust, and you can't control it, and you're doing too many things. You're too involved. Okay. There are strategies. I don't want to use. Hold on.
We're going to get to that. Hold on. You said a couple things. I got to stop you. Hold on. And you've already used it twice. The phrase "you are too involved." What are you talking about, Jeff? Of course I'm involved. It's my real estate. I own between 1 and 100 doors. Of course I'm involved.
Yeah. You're a human being. You're involved. And so you're driving from one house to the next, and you're not paying attention because you're texting, and then you hit a kid in the crosswalk. Then what?
My property's in an LLC, Jeff.
But did you ever take any money out of that LLC and pay for anything personal? Did you bleed it down to where it's undercapitalized? Did you fail to maintain all the proper entity requirements for an LLC? Do you have all the structure in place? I have only met a few investors that have managed to do it and do it right. And I got to tell you, I've got a friend that's a lawyer, and he didn't do it right. And there's a very embarrassing court case out there about it. Okay. And I really think it was a personality thing. I think the court had it in for him. I think other people could do the same thing, and the court would not go that way, but because they just had an issue with him, they wanted to nail him. Okay.
And this is where it comes back to, that's a judge's opinion.
Yeah.
And which is a very, it could be flawed. It's human. It's human error. It's human. You're trying to convince, you and your counsel are trying to convince a human to be on your side versus this side. And it can go either way.
If the judge doesn't like you, you got a problem.
I got firsthand experience with that.
Yeah, brother, I've been there. been there. I mean, I've tried cases in front of judges that despised me. It's not fun. It's not fun. Okay. Um, so let me go back to this point, because I've said it a couple of times, and I want to make sure I'm very clear about this. There is a way to properly set up a sound, well-managed, well-designed structure that will give you what I think 98% protection. And you're going to be solid until you have a multi-million-dollar problem, such as carbon monoxide poisoning that takes out a family of 5, and you've got mom and dad brain dead, and you've got 3 kids that have been CO poisoning and are going to be paralyzed for the rest of their life. That's something that, I pray you've got a $2 to $3 million umbrella liability policy in place, and that may get you out the door without losing anything else. It may not.
Mm-hmm. So when I want to talk about strategies, I want to talk about what you would suggest. I think we've talked about this in the what you came down to Birmingham to talk about that one time. So I'm definitely going to link up that talk. It's on our YouTube channel right now. I'll link up that talk for sure. But I do want to kind of bite-size bit that. But go back to umbrella insurance, because not all insurance is the same. And right. And I've heard, insurance companies, they're going to sit there and argue that, no, this is not, we're not going to cover that because of this and because of that and because of this.
And I've litigated a couple of those cases, and the best position to be in, there's two relationships you can have with an insurance company. There's a first party relationship and a third party relationship. The owner of the policy, the person paying the premium, is in a first party relationship. The insurance company has a duty to always act in good faith towards them. And so I've literally, on behalf of policyholders, had to sue an insurance company to say, listen, you have a duty to defend and indemnify, because they wanted to decline coverage. And we were successful. The third party relationship is like, if you're sitting in your car and you get T-boned by somebody who's insured by State Farm, you're a third party relationship with State Farm. Okay. And they don't have to do anything but try and save as much money as possible. So a good real estate investor, a savvy real estate investor, has their underlying primary liability, property and casualty insurance policy on their properties. And then they go out and buy an umbrella policy that stacks on top of it and covers over several properties. 2 different insurance companies, 2 different premiums, 2 different coverage levels. The umbrella coverage level isn't triggered unless you exhaust the basic first level, okay? But now you have a first party relationship with not 1, but 2 different insurance companies, that then you have more negotiating power, and you have not 1, but possibly 2 squads of lawyers showing up in an expensive civil lawsuit that the insurance company is paying their hourly rate defending you. That's the ideal scenario.
What about this phantom, this carbon monoxide poisoning? I don't have a carbon monoxide poisoning rider or designation on my insurance, so we're not going to cover you. We didn't talk about that.
No, there's not an exclusion for that like there is for mold or lead-based paint.
But then let's use mold and lead-based paint then.
Yeah, well, do you want to spend all hour on that or what?
Well, just in a quick, if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shop around for insurance, I need to make sure I'm covered for what?
You need to make sure that you're covered for as many risks as possible, not just fire and lightning and wind and hail and tornadoes and thunderstorms, but you need to make sure that you're covered for when you do stupid, when you unintentionally do stupid. Am I covered when a tenant texts me about some drippy faucet and I forget about it for a month and now they've got mold? Am I covered when a tenant texts me and says, hey, I got a little bit of paint that's peeling and chipping, and you don't do anything about it right away? And lo and behold, you didn't know that there was lead-based paint 2 layers underneath that. Okay. Now there's lots of things you can do. You can, whenever you buy a home, you can always get it tested for lead as part of your process and use it to negotiate a better price, so you can go in and do a thorough lead remediation on the property. That's always a good strategy. You can Always ask the tenant. You can put a process in place where at least every 6 months, when you're checking on the time change, when you're checking on the batteries in the smoke detectors or the battery backup to the hardwired smoke detectors, you can be checking with the tenant. Hey, do you have any issues with any loose, chipping, peeling, flaking paint? If so, tell me about it right away. Okay. And so then you can shift it to where, oh, you never told me there was a problem, so I can't have fixed it. If I couldn't have fixed it, I can't be negligent. I do an inspection every 6 months. You didn't tell me in between those 6 months. I'm sorry. How do you prove that my negligence was therefore the cause?
Jeff, you mentioned being too involved. 1 to 100, I would even argue it could be 1 to many hundred could be really involved. There's so many people out there, and I'm guilty, totally guilty. So many people out there teaching that anybody could do this. Anybody could be a real estate investor, which is true to an extent. But I've seen with my own eyes as anecdotal kind of evidence that there are too many real estate investors out there holding property, and they're doing it a little too flippantly, a little too haphazardly. The steps that you're talking about, well, those cost money, Jeff, like going out.
No, they don't cost a lot of money. They take self-discipline. They take developing systems and processes. That's what they take.
But some do the extra step. Yes, it takes extra time, and in some cases it takes extra money.
Yeah. And so you shouldn't buy a property unless you know you've got a solid, strong cash flow coming out of it. And I mean, Brian, I was there. I remember being so happy that I bought a house one time where I had a positive cash flow of $25 a month, and I thought I was fantastic. I'd like to go back to that kid I was back then, standing in the driveway of that rental house, and beat the crud out of that kid. He didn't know beans.
But how many people?
This nationally famous guru talks about how his wife bought a house with $10 a month positive cash flow, and I'm going like, you be on crack, dude. If I don't get $300 a month, I ain't interested.
Yeah. But how many people out there, let's say we even get $300 a month. Say it's not about the cash flow. Say we learned how to do real estate. We bought it right. We did all the steps necessary that we're supposed to do, but we got this one part wrong. We didn't get the insurance right because we didn't know what we were doing. Weren't educated. We didn't get the LLC and the entity structure set up right because we didn't know what we were doing. We were just told by our accountant to go set up an LLC, and we pay our $100 in Alabama anyway, pay our $100 every year, and we got our LLC. And I didn't know that I couldn't, I don't have enough money in this account right now, and I haven't moved money over yet, but I got to get gas. So I need to stop. I'm just going to use this. I got this debit card for this other account. I'm just going to go ahead and get gas real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and go through the McDonald's line real quick, the Chick-fil-A line, I should say, in your case, and maybe use some funds inappropriately, not as appropriate as I should have, but I'm going to fix it later. And I'm not doing I'm not, and I know there's different things with corporations versus LLCs, but I'm not doing the paperwork I'm supposed to be doing. I got accountants, they're going to handle that, but maybe they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and I didn't know enough. And now all of a sudden I get sued. And I don't know I think I'm covered, but I don't really know. And I just did what I saw a YouTube video tell me to do. There's too many people out here like this, Jeff.
Way too many people out there like this, Brian. Thank you for preaching on my soapbox. Thank you. And I'm gonna put it like this, and I'm gonna hurt some feelings. And I'm sorry, my skin's pretty thick, so I don't care. One of the greatest things about America is that almost anybody can become a real estate investor. One of the worst things about America is that almost anybody can become a real estate investor. Not everybody is designed to be able to own and operate and successfully manage single-family houses. I don't have the management skills that some of my friends and clients have. I've got one client, he owns 150 single family houses, and he's got it all dialed in. Okay. I'm not there. I won't ever be like him. Okay. I've got a friend that can manage a portfolio of 50 houses from thousands of miles away, and the tenants have no IDs out of the state. I don't have those skills. Mm-hmm. So you have to go find out who can fill in where you're weak. Mm-hmm. And there is enough information out there that if you dig for it, you can learn what you need to do to set your entities up right. you can then find the right property manager. And Brian, you and I have the same experience. I saw the look on your face and I resonated with you, dude. There's too many people out there selling bad information. Way too many people out there selling bad info. Okay. When it comes to asset protection, how to buy, how to invest, way too many people doing it. But if you suck at management, hire a management company and learn how to manage the management company.
So, and then just as far as management goes, is it true that if I have a management company that's done everything, I bought the property, I literally turn it over to them on day one, and I'm not involved with tenant placement, I'm not involved with anything except I went and rehabbed the property. That's all I did. Is it true that I'm kind of released of liability if maybe there was like some sort of discrimination against getting the wrong tenant in there? I'm kind of
You've got a very good defense. You've got a very good defense because if you never met the tenant, you can't have discriminated against them unless they can prove that you knew the property management company was engaging in discriminatory acts and you did nothing about it.
But for the most part, Jeff, having a property manager, for the most part, there's going to be obviously exceptions. That's a good way to release a lot of liability off of me.
It is a very good way if it's a quality property management company that's licensed, bonded, and insured. Yeah, that's a great move. It is. And I'm going to tell you, for the time freedom, for that shifting of risk, it's well worth the 10% I'm going to pay them.
Yeah. So we talked about management. We talked about insurance, at least, from a overview standpoint. I want to dig back into this actual entity setup. And again, we're going to link up the video where Jeff went an hour and a half really dissecting this stuff. And I remember your number one rule to asset protection is you must have an asset to protect. So I definitely remember that. But let's say
Brian, I'm going to talk about that for a second. I've been asked questions. So I've had people ask me incredibly complex structuring asset protection questions. And I just said, that's a great question. How many houses do you own? Oh, I'm looking to buy my first house. Stop spending your time on that and go find a good deal. And then figure out from there. A bicycle will work until you need a car. A car will work until you need a truck. A truck will work until you need a semi. A semi will work until you need a fleet.
I gotcha. I like it.
Yeah.
So I've spent my time, Jeff. I've identified a great deal. I've got it under contract. I've got the financing lined up. Everything's lined up. I'm 30 days away from closing. I need your help. What do I do? This is my first property ever. What do I do?
First property ever. So my question is, who's financing it and who's buying it?
Getting bank financing, and I'm buying it.
Okay. It's fantastic. Fantastic. If that's the situation you're in, then you're going to have to buy it in your own name. You're going to have to sign those predatory documents issued to you by the bank for taking their money. And you're going to need to make sure that you've got insurance, because the bank won't let you close until you've got good insurance in place. And then you need to do a couple of things.
This is after I've closed on it.
No, this is before you close on it. Okay. You need to make sure you get the right insurance policy in place before you close on it. If you never close, you get all the money back.
Which is what?
You want to get what I will call an either HO2 or HO3. You want the best landlord policy that's there, and you're going to shop among at least 3 different independent agents looking for that policy. Okay? You're looking for coverage levels. You're looking for what they cover, deductibles, the whole bit. This is work. You're buying a house that's what? $250,000, Brian?
Let's say, let's use Alabama numbers. Let's say a solid house in a solid B area, 150,000.
Okay. $150,000. So we're basically talking about the same amount of money that a typical family earns in 2 years. So since we're talking about 2 years worth of earnings, I think it's worth a couple of days of due diligence on doing certain things the right way. Okay. So we want to make sure we've got good insurance. And then the second thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting a title insurance policy. Then we want to make sure that we can truly afford the property. Because once we've got the financing lined up, we're going to get a good faith statement from the lender saying basically what my principal, interest, taxes, insurance are going to be, and how does that compare to what I think the projected cash flow is going to be from the property. Because I'm going to tell you right now, 40% of what you collect in gross rents is going to go to taxes, insurance, maintenance, reserves, and operations.
At least yes.
40%. Okay. So if the remaining 50, 60% doesn't cover your principal and interest with a buffer, bad deal. No bueno.
Right. So I've learned all this, and I've got this. I got the financing piece. Everything's kind of taken care of. I make good money. I'm getting my first property. Okay. So I'm at this stage.
You accept a warranty deed at the closing. You're going to accept a warranty deed from the seller to you, yes, vesting title into your name personally.
Okay.
Thereafter, my suggestion to you is consult with a local attorney about then transferring that property via another warranty deed into a grantor revocable title holding trust, of which you are the grantor, of which you are the trustee, of which your LLC owned by you and your spouse or you and your adult kids is the beneficiary.
Grantor revocable, you said trust?
Title holding trust.
Okay. I actually missed that last part because I assumed you were about to say LLC. So I'm not putting it in an LLC.
Not yet. We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we don't want to leave title, because if we straight transfer title from my name to my LLC, the bank can go, oh, you just violated a term in the mortgage or in the deed of trust.
Right.
We don't want to do that.
I'm the trustee. I'm not the beneficiary.
You're not the beneficiary. You're the grantor. You're the person who creates the trust, and you're the trustee.
Who's the beneficiary?
An LLC that I own with my significant other, with my spouse, with my adult kids.
Got it. And is this an LLC? There's lots of different types or things, or
when I explain it that way, when I say it's an LLC owned by more than one person, it's more than one human being. Therefore, the IRS is going to tell you it's going to be taxed as a partnership. Mm-hmm. It's going to file its own separate partnership tax return.
So it's not under it's not a part of your tax return, personal tax return.
It's not directly part of your personal tax return. It's indirectly part of your personal tax return, because the information from the partnership tax return is going to come via a K-1 and get put on a Schedule E on page 2 of a Schedule E that's going to make its way to the front page of your 1040 return.
But it's not going to be on Schedule C.
No, absolutely not.
Talk about the difference here. Talk about
rental properties should never be on a Schedule C. Schedule C is for an active trade and business, earned income. Rents go on Schedule E, E as in echo. Flip deals, wholesale assignment fees, consulting fees, all that stuff, that goes on a Schedule C as in Charlie.
All right, Jeff. Okay, here we go. And we don't even have much time, but this is so good. This is so great. You just said a second ago, consult with a local, I think you said competent, local attorney. Jeff, all attorneys are not created equal, true or false?
Amen. True.
I think it is tragic. It is a complete disservice to the public that attorneys are not allowed to say that they are better than another attorney. Now, listen, I don't know. I don't know of one. You are like literally one of 2 attorneys I trust, because attorneys do not, the amount of knowledge that you have it doesn't come from law school.
In no way. It did not. LLCs didn't exist when I was in law school.
But I'm just saying, and there could be base knowledge that you get from law school. And I'm not downplaying law school, but the amount of experience and expertise that you have is through doing it and through constantly educating yourself. So if I put it straight from my name into a trust which the deed is being transferred into a trust. Now the property is owned by a trust. That gets filed.
Owned by the trustee of the trust.
Okay.
It's how title is held in the name of the trustee of the trust.
Not the name of the trust.
It's held in the name of the trustee of the trust.
Is that every state?
Every state.
Okay. Maybe I'm
biggest
confused.
misconception out there right now is put in a trust. Oh no, it's the trust is governed and controlled by the trustee.
Right. I get that. But the deed says it says such and such land trust.
Such and such land trust, comma, Brian Tripp as trustee and not personally.
Okay. So not everybody does that.
They're making it. That's defective. It's wrong. Keep going.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. And then that paperwork gets filed. That deed gets filed at the courthouse. But what does not get filed at the courthouse is the actual trust paperwork, the actual trust itself, where you've named the beneficiary. So nobody technically knows who the beneficiary is.
Correct.
How could someone find that out? Is there any way?
There's two ways. Number one is you open your mouth and you tell them. Number two is the trust and trustee gets sued and the court compels you to disclose who is the beneficiary.
Interesting.
That's it.
So that's the argument that I've heard for non-grantor trust, which you say you don't know anything about. It can't get sued.
Anybody can sue anything, dude.
It gets thrown out.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Well,
Show me case law that says that. I'm going to send you case law that says that.
I'm not an attorney. I'm going to send you something. You tell me if it's legitimate or not. And I'm not going to post this to my YouTube channel until
I want to see an appellate opinion affirming that.
Okay.
That because it was a non-grantor trust, it couldn't be sued, that it was statutorily immune.
Last thing. I have now created a trust and I've named my beneficiary, my LLC. How do I sell that property now?
You, as the trustee of the trust, many years later, when you want to upgrade the property, you then hire a real estate agent to sell the property and you sign all the paperwork
as the trustee
to sell the property. And when the check gets cut, it's made payable to the trustee of the trust. And the trustee of the trust will then endorse the back of the check and deposit it into the LLC bank account.
So there's nothing I need to do fancy. The trust never gets, the beneficiary never gets disclosed.
Not unless the title company needs to see it, but that's a private transaction and the title company's got to keep it confidential.
Got it.